It's always been a sort of natural law that a strange toy must exist to define the decade. Today, we have fidget spinners, glitter slime, etc. The 1990s are no exception. From Furbies to Plastigoop, there are a lot of contenders for the strangest toy of the 90s. I'm Vex0r, and I'll be your guide as we travel 3 decades to the past and take a look at 5 of our contenders. You decide which one takes the crown of the strangest toy of the 90s. Crawling in at number 5 are the creepy crawlers of 1992. Creepy crawlers were an activity toy first introduced by Mattel in 1964. Mattel encouraged kids to channel their inner blacksmith by heating liquid in a die-cast metal mold. Children would pour a chemical liquid called Plastigoop into metal molds shaped like creatures. These filled molds would be heated to about 390 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot plate oven. The heat would toughen the Plastigoop and, once cooled, produced a rubbery figurine resembling the shape of the mold. Molds were sold in themed sets, the very first one featuring molds of bug-like creatures. This set was called Giant Creepy Crawlers, giving the toy its name. The toy did not just limit itself to crawlers that were creepy. The Incredible Edibles of 1967 used gobbledygook in place of Plastigoop to make edible creations. A 1969 set called Hot Wheels Factory allowed kids to make their own Hot Wheels racers by combining the result of one mold with another that had wheels embedded into it. After being discontinued over safety concerns in 1970 and a failed revival attempt in 1978, a New York company, Toymax, bought the Creepy Crawlers brand back. Now with a safer design, the new Creepy Crawlers began in 1992 and featured some of the original 1960s molds. In addition, Toymax licensed several characters, allowing them to make characters such as Batman, Buzz Lightyear, Bugs Bunny, and many more. Eventually, the Creepy Crawlers crawled to its end as releases became increasingly inconsistent and consumer interest became consistently low. In 2001, Toymax attempted a jumpstart with 2 new sets that were met with disappointing sales, hence marking the apparent end of the brand. Some toys have had a much more fruitful legacy, however. Take for example number 4, the Cabbage Patch Kids. Everyone debates theories on how the miracle of life began. But the true story is, get this, a bunny-looking bee sprinkled magic dust across a cabbage field, giving rise to tiny babies and kids who called the cabbage their home. At least, that's what the lore of Cabbage Patch Kids tells us. In 1978, 21-year-old Xavier Roberts birthed the first Cabbage Patch Kids, originally called the Little People, in Cleveland, Georgia. The Little People weren't ever sold, but were given to customers who paid an adoption fee. These customers would receive their little person as well as its birth certificate. The Little People became the Cabbage Patch Kids in 1982 when Xavier licensed his dolls to a manufacturer called Coleco to begin mass production. As mentioned before, the Cabbage Patch Kids had their own lore. A 10-year-old boy named Xavier Roberts discovered the Cabbage Patch Kids after following a bunny bee behind a waterfall and into a magic cabbage field. There's even a website dedicated to passing on the legend of the Cabbage Patch Kids, linked in the description. The dolls were not only a must-have toy, but also a huge pop culture icon in 90s America. In 1992, the Cabbage Patch Kids even became the official mascot for America's Olympics team, and the athletes were gifted their own doll to bring to the competition. In 1999, they were nominated to be one of the US postage stamps commemorating the 1980s. They were voted 5th, trailing behind the one and only E.T. Though the brand has been passed around to many different manufacturing companies, the Cabbage Patch Kids have somehow managed to hold its own in the market. They're still being sold, and classic ones from Coleco and even Xavier himself are valued collector's items, selling for even more than $1,000. It's definitely surprising that toys from long ago can still survive in the market today. And in the case of Gooey Louie, our number 3, it's just as surprising as it is disgusting. Back in the day, every kid was easily entertained by all things gross. Entertainment of the 90s reflected this with shows like Ren and Stimpy, where the humor was largely based on disgusting, repellent, and frankly shocking imagery which thrived off of the fad of the time. Toys also fed off this craze, like the creepy crawlers mentioned before. Gooey Louie was Goliath Games' take on the trend granting children the opportunity of pulling out boogers out of a plastic character. In Russian roulette style, players would stick their fingers inside Louie's nose attempting to fish out a booger. Each player took turns pulling out a number of gooeys determined by the roll of a die. And if you happened to be the unlucky booger puller, Louie's brain would literally shoot out of his head. Goliath Games was no stranger to crude humor, being the producer of games like Who Tooted, where players guess who made that classic flatulence noise, or Doggy Doo, where you win fart tokens for picking up plastic poop. Gooey Louie was advertised as a hip, edgy game, and according to some, a milestone in the action games category. To further immerse players in the action of Gooey Louie, a deluxe version was released. This version included a voice box that would play sounds of Louie ordering you to pull his gooey. To add some realism, Louie would make sniffling noises as you played. Don't worry if you've never had the opportunity to pull Louie's gooeys, because it's still in stores today for around $15. However, if you want to have an original vintage version, it's only just $13. And if you ever get too frustrated while playing Gooey Louie, then the Jibba Jabber, our number 2, has got you covered. Production for the Jibba Jabber dolls began in 1994. Originally purposed for children's entertainment, adults found them useful as stress relievers as the doll's long neck was meant to be strangled. When choked, the Jibba Jabber would let out a high-pitched gurgling sound that children found hilarious and adults found concerning. Reasonably worried, parent groups were worried that the Jibba Jabber enticed children to choke things. They also believed that the Jibba Jabber encouraged shaken baby syndrome, an infantile head injury resulting from shaking the head of a child. The Jibba Jabber was re-released, now with a pamphlet stating, "It's okay to shake Jibba Jabber, it's never okay to shake a child." This message didn't seem to ease concern as much, however, and Jibba Jabber's legacy was short-lived. The toy choked its last breath in 1996 when production discontinued. The strangest thing about the Jibba Jabber was probably the company that produced it, Ertl. It wasn't that the other toys they made were weird, it was that the other toys they made were so not weird. Ertl was best known for their die-cast metal models of farm equipment and other vehicles. The furthest tangent from their usual creations was probably their line of airplane models. The Jibba Jabber was a toy so out of left field for them that even on Ertl's own Wikipedia page, there's zero trace of the Jibba Jabber's existence. Speaking of dolls you want to choke, number 1 on our list are the Furbies. Inspired by an earlier 90s toy, the Tamagotchi, the Furby was created as a solution to the one big issue of the Tamagotchi: you couldn't pet it. A deal was created between toy company Tiger Electronics and original inventors Dave Hampton, Caleb Chung, and Richard Levy, and the Furby took the market by storm in 1998. Even though it debuted 2 months before the new year, 1.8 million units were sold in 1998 alone. The dolls continued being a hit, and a total of 14 million units were sold by the end of 1999. The main attraction of the dolls was that it would make customers feel as if they were taking care of something alive. Furbies were intelligent dolls that could communicate with other Furbies. When first activated, they spoke their own gibberish language, Furbish, and learned English over time as the owner raised them. As the technology expanded, so did the Furbies reach into the uncanny valley. They were able to communicate with humans through a voice communication system, and their faces were more emotive as well. In 2012, Furbies were able to connect to smartphones, were able to display a wide range of emotions, and could adapt their personality to user behavior. The on and off switch was also removed. Apparently, they would turn off automatically after 1 minute of inactivity, but Furbies were rumored to turn on by itself in the middle of the night and begin talking. They were as scary to children as they were to the government. In 1999, the NSA banned Furbies from their premises as they feared the Furbies would record secret information and relay it back to anyone. Though the NSA was eventually reassured by the creator of Furbies and the ban was lifted, I wouldn't recommend allowing this intelligent doll to sleep in the same room as you. So, which of these should be heralded as the weirdest toy of the 90s? If you know any other toys that deserve to be a contender, or if you want more examples to judge, let me know and we can dive deeper into the 20th century. My channel is about all things retro, so subscribe for more about artifacts of the past, classic mysteries, and stories from the retro age. Thank you very much for watching, follow my ever-growing Twitch channel, and most importantly, have a phenomenal rest of your day.